Welcome to our exploration of one of the most profound and inspiring stories from the Bible, the life and leadership of Joshua. Imagine standing on the edge of a promise, staring into the unknown, with the weight of an entire nation on your shoulders. Joshua's journey from a young assistant to Moses to the courageous leader who led the Israelites into the Promised Land is a testament to unwavering faith, divine guidance, and extraordinary leadership. Have you ever faced challenges so daunting that they seemed impossible to overcome? Joshua's story will show you how faith, courage, and determination can lead to triumph even in the face of overwhelming odds. We'll walk through his victories, his struggles, and the enduring legacy he left behind. Along the way, you'll discover timeless lessons about trust, obedience, and the power of community. But before we dive in, we have a small favor to ask. If you find value in these stories and lessons, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Let's journey together into the life of a man who turned faith into action and action into history. Joshua's story begins with the weight of an immense responsibility placed upon his shoulders. As the successor of Moses, one of the greatest leaders in biblical history, Joshua's role was nothing short of monumental. Following the death of Moses, Joshua was appointed to lead the Israelites into the Promised Land, a task that required not only military strategy, but unwavering faith and steadfast leadership. Moses' death marked the end of an era, but also the beginning of a new chapter for the Israelites. They had spent 40 years wandering in the wilderness, awaiting the fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The Promised Land, a place described as a land flowing with milk and honey, was now within their reach. However, the transition from promise to possession required a leader who could unite and guide a nation through both spiritual and physical battles. Joshua was chosen for this task. From the outset, Joshua faced the daunting task of stepping into Moses' shoes. Moses was not just a leader, but a prophet who had delivered the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, parted the Red Sea, and received the 10 Commandments from God. To follow such a figure was a challenge in itself. Yet, Joshua's appointment was not arbitrary. It was divinely ordained. God's command to Moses to appoint Joshua as his successor was a testament to Joshua's faithfulness, courage, and humility. Joshua's selection highlighted an essential theme. Leadership under God's authority is not about personal ambition, but about serving the people according to divine will. This principle would guide Joshua throughout his life, influencing every decision he made. His journey was not merely about leading a nation, but about embodying God's promises and guiding others to do the same. Joshua's unique beginning as a leader also demonstrated that great leadership often arises from preparation and faith rather than privilege. Unlike many leaders who inherit power, Joshua's authority stemmed from his proven character and God's explicit choice. This distinction laid the foundation for his extraordinary impact. Joshua's initial steps into leadership were met with challenges that required profound reliance on divine wisdom. As he prepared to lead, he had to balance his respect for Moses' legacy with the need to assert his own God-given authority. This dynamic marked the beginning of a transformational period for both Joshua and the Israelites. Joshua's rise to leadership was not a sudden occurrence. His character and leadership abilities had been tested and refined over many years. As a young man, Joshua had served as Moses' assistant, a role that allowed him to observe and learn from Moses' leadership. This mentorship was crucial in shaping Joshua into the leader he would later become. Joshua exhibited several qualities that defined his leadership and contributed to his success. Courage in battle. One of the earliest glimpses of Joshua's leadership came during the battle against the Amalekites. In this confrontation, Joshua was entrusted with leading Israel's forces, while Moses prayed for their victory. This event highlighted two critical aspects of Joshua's character: his courage in the face of conflict and his reliance on God's guidance. Joshua understood that success was not solely dependent on military strength, but on divine intervention. Faith in God's promises. Joshua's faith was further demonstrated during the mission of the 12 spies. Sent to explore the land of Canaan, the spies were tasked with assessing the land's resources and the strength of its inhabitants. While 10 of the spies returned with reports that instilled fear and doubt among the Israelites, Joshua and Caleb stood firm in their belief that God would deliver the land into their hands. Their faith and optimism set them apart and demonstrated their unwavering trust in God's promises. Loyalty and humility. Joshua's loyalty to God and Moses was evident throughout his life. He was not only a warrior but also a servant, always placing the needs of the people and the commands of God above his own. His humility, coupled with his courage and faith, made him the ideal leader to guide the Israelites into the promised land. Unlike many leaders who seek power for personal gain, Joshua's leadership was rooted in service and obedience. Strategic leadership. Joshua's ability to lead extended beyond faith and courage. He was a strategic thinker, understanding the importance of preparation and unity among his people. This combination of spiritual reliance and practical strategy made him an exceptional leader. These qualities, honed over decades of experience and challenges, ensured that Joshua was not only a capable military commander, but also a spiritual guide and unifying figure for the Israelites. His life offers timeless lessons on the importance of balancing spiritual devotion with practical action, making him a model of holistic leadership. The story of the 12 spies is a pivotal moment in Joshua's journey. When Moses sent 12 men to scout the land of Canaan, the mission was not merely about gathering intelligence, it was a test of faith. The spies were to assess the land and its inhabitants, but they were also to trust in God's promise that this land was theirs to claim. The spies' report was a mixture of hope and fear. They confirmed that the land was indeed bountiful, a land flowing with milk and honey, but they also spoke of fortified cities and giants who inhabited the land. Their words sowed fear and doubt among the Israelites, leading to rebellion and despair. However, Joshua and Caleb stood against the tide of negativity. They urged the people to trust in God's power, declaring, "The Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them." Numbers 14:9. This moment was not just a demonstration of Joshua's faith, but also a testament to his leadership. Even when faced with opposition from the majority, Joshua remained steadfast. He understood that God's promises were not dependent on human strength or circumstances, but on divine faithfulness. His confidence in God's power was unwavering, and it set the stage for his future role as the leader of Israel. The fallout from the spies' report had significant consequences. The Israelites' lack of faith led to a 40-year period of wandering in the wilderness, during which an entire generation passed away. Only Joshua and Caleb, among the original spies, were allowed to enter the Promised Land. This distinction highlighted their unique faith and obedience to God. This story emphasized the importance of trusting in God's promises, even when circumstances seem insurmountable. It also highlighted Joshua's ability to inspire hope and courage in the face of fear, qualities that would define his leadership. His refusal to succumb to despair and his reliance on God's strength offer powerful lessons in navigating challenges that seem insurmountable. As the Israelites' journey through the wilderness came to an end, the mantle of leadership was formally passed from Moses to Joshua. This transition was marked by a public commissioning, during which Moses laid hands on Joshua and charged him with leading the people. This act was a symbolic transfer of authority, underscoring the divine approval of Joshua's leadership. God's instructions to Joshua were clear and direct. Repeatedly, he commanded Joshua to be strong and courageous. These words were not merely encouragements. They were imperatives, underscoring the challenges that lay ahead. Joshua's strength and courage were to be rooted in his faith in God's presence and promises. "As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you." God assured Joshua, Joshua 1:5. This promise was a source of strength for Joshua, reminding him that his success depended not on his abilities, but on God's faithfulness. The preparation for leadership also involved practical measures. Joshua was to meditate on the book of the law day and night, ensuring that his actions were aligned with God's will. This emphasis on spiritual discipline highlighted the importance of staying connected to God's guidance in the midst of leadership responsibilities. Joshua's leadership preparation was not limited to spiritual readiness. He also developed practical strategies for uniting the tribes of Israel and organizing them for the conquest of Canaan. By fostering unity and purpose, Joshua ensured that the Israelites were ready to face the challenges ahead. The commissioning ceremony and public acknowledgement of Joshua's role served as a powerful affirmation of his authority. These acts were not only symbolic, but also practical, as they reassured the Israelites that Joshua was God's chosen leader. As Joshua stood on the threshold of the Promised Land, he embodied a unique combination of humility, courage, and faith. His journey thus far had been one of preparation, shaping him into a leader capable of fulfilling God's promises to his people. His reliance on God's guidance, combined with his practical wisdom, created a blueprint for leadership that continues to inspire. Joshua's first significant challenge as the leader of Israel came in the form of a natural obstacle: the Jordan River. Unlike their previous miraculous crossing of the Red Sea under Moses, this time the Israelites faced a river at flood stage, overflowing its banks and impossible to cross without divine intervention. This moment was pivotal, not only as a physical challenge, but also as a test of faith and obedience for both Joshua and the people. God's instructions to Joshua were clear and specific. The priests were to carry the Ark of the Covenant, a sacred symbol of God's presence, and step into the river first. As their feet touched the water, the flow of the river was miraculously halted. The waters piled up in a heap a great distance away, Joshua 3:16, creating dry ground for the Israelites to cross. This miraculous event not only showcased God's power, but also tested the obedience and faith of the people, requiring them to step forward even before seeing the waters part. This event reinforced several crucial themes. First, it demonstrated God's power and faithfulness in fulfilling his promises. Just as he had parted the Red Sea, he now provided a way for the Israelites to enter the Promised Land. Second, it solidified Joshua's leadership in the eyes of the people. The miraculous crossing served as a public affirmation of God's presence with Joshua, as he had been with Moses. This visible act of divine support unified the Israelites under Joshua's command and gave them confidence to face the challenges ahead. The crossing of the Jordan also carried deep symbolic meaning. It marked the end of the Israelites' wandering in the wilderness and the beginning of a new chapter in their journey. To commemorate this moment, Joshua instructed one man from each of the 12 tribes to take a stone from the riverbed and set it up as a memorial at their camp in Gilgal. These stones were meant to remind future generations of God's power and faithfulness. Joshua's words echoed through time. When your children ask in time to come, "What do these stones mean to you?" then you shall tell them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. Joshua 4:6-7. The miracle at the Jordan was not merely an act of divine intervention, it was a call to faith and obedience. By stepping into the river before it parted, the priests and the people demonstrated their trust in God's promise. This act of faith set the tone for the many challenges that lay ahead in their conquest of Canaan. It also reminded the Israelites that their success would always depend on God's power, not their own strength. The Battle of Jericho stands as one of the most extraordinary accounts of divine intervention in military history. Jericho was a heavily fortified city with massive walls that seemed impenetrable. For the Israelites, defeating Jericho was not just a strategic necessity, but a spiritual mandate, a demonstration of God's power over human defenses. God's instructions for conquering Jericho were unconventional and required complete obedience. The Israelites were to march around the city once a day for 6 days, accompanied by priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant and blowing trumpets. On the 7th day, they were to march around the city 7 times, and at Joshua's command, the people would shout. At that moment, the walls of Jericho would collapse. This plan defied conventional military strategy. Yet Joshua and the Israelites obeyed without question. Their faith in God's promise was rewarded when, on the 7th day, the walls of Jericho fell just as God had said. The city was captured, and its inhabitants were destroyed, with the exception of Rahab and her family. Rahab, a prostitute who had sheltered the Israelite spies, was spared because of her faith and actions, becoming an integral part of Israel's story and even appearing in the genealogy of Jesus Christ, Matthew 1:5. The fall of Jericho highlighted several key themes. First, it underscored the importance of faith and obedience. The Israelites' victory was not achieved through their own strength or strategy, but through their trust in God's plan. Second, it demonstrated God's sovereignty over human affairs. The walls of Jericho, symbols of human power and security, crumbled under the weight of divine intervention. This event served as a powerful reminder that no human defense can stand against the will of God. This event also served as a warning and a lesson. The complete destruction of Jericho, including its people and possessions, was a reminder of God's holiness and the seriousness of His commands. The Israelites were instructed to devote everything in the city to destruction, keeping nothing for themselves. This directive emphasized that their victory was God's and that they were merely stewards of His will. Disobedience to this command would have dire consequences, as seen in the events that followed. Following their resounding victory at Jericho, the Israelites faced a starkly different experience at Ai, a smaller and seemingly less formidable city. Initially, Joshua's confidence in God's continued support led him to send a smaller force to capture Ai. However, this campaign ended in failure, with 36 Israelite soldiers killed and the army forced to retreat. The unexpected defeat caused fear and confusion among the Israelites and led Joshua to seek answers from God. The reason for their defeat was soon revealed: disobedience. Achan, an Israelite soldier, had violated God's command by taking some of the devoted things from Jericho and hiding them in his tent. This act of greed and disobedience brought God's anger upon the entire nation. Joshua responded decisively. Under God's direction, he identified Achan as the guilty party and carried out the prescribed punishment. Achan and his family were executed, and the stolen items were destroyed. This act of justice restored God's favor, and the Israelites were able to conquer Ai in a second campaign, this time with God's blessing. The defeat at Ai and its aftermath underscore the critical importance of obedience to God. Even a single act of disobedience can have far-reaching consequences, affecting not only the individual, but the entire community. This story also highlights Joshua's role as a leader who upheld God's holiness and justice, even when it required difficult decisions. Furthermore, the victory at Ai in the second campaign demonstrated God's willingness to forgive and restore when His people repent and return to obedience. This dynamic interplay of justice, repentance, and restoration reveals the depth of God's relationship with His people and the seriousness of His covenant with them. The conquest of Canaan was not only a series of military campaigns, but also a complex interaction with the peoples of the land. One of the most intriguing episodes in Joshua's leadership was the covenant with the Gibeonites. Unlike the battles at Jericho and Ai, this event involved diplomacy and deception. The Gibeonites, fearing the Israelites after hearing of their victories, devised a cunning plan to secure their survival. They disguised themselves as travelers from a distant land, wearing worn-out clothes and carrying moldy bread. They approached Joshua and the leaders of Israel, requesting a treaty of peace. Without seeking God's guidance, Joshua and the leaders agreed to the treaty, swearing an oath to spare the Gibeonites. When the truth was later discovered that the Gibeonites were actually inhabitants of Canaan, the Israelites were bound by their oath and could not harm them. Instead, the Gibeonites were made servants, tasked with carrying water and cutting wood for the Israelite community. This story reveals both the challenges of leadership and the importance of seeking God's guidance in all decisions. Joshua's failure to consult God before making the treaty resulted in a situation that complicated Israel's conquest of Canaan. However, it also demonstrated the value of integrity. Despite being deceived, Joshua honored the treaty, reflecting God's principle of faithfulness. The covenant with the Gibeonites also carries a broader spiritual lesson. It serves as a reminder that God's plans often involve unexpected outcomes and require leaders to navigate complex situations with wisdom and humility. Joshua's handling of this situation exemplified his commitment to justice and his willingness to adapt while maintaining his integrity. This story also foreshadowed the ongoing challenges Israel would face in coexisting with other nations. The Gibeonites, though spared, became a living reminder of the consequences of failing to seek God's guidance. Yet, their role within Israel's community also illustrated God's ability to incorporate even unexpected elements into his greater plan. Following the victories at Jericho and Ai, Joshua's leadership and the might of Israel became well known throughout Canaan. This growing reputation created fear among the local kings, leading to the formation of alliances to resist Israel's advance. One such alliance was formed by Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, who rallied the kings of Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish, and Eglon to attack the Gibeonites. The Gibeonites, having secured a treaty with Israel, called upon Joshua for assistance. The campaign against these southern kings stands out for its demonstration of divine intervention and Joshua's strategic brilliance. Joshua and his army marched all night from Gilgal to Gibeon, covering a significant distance to catch the enemy off guard. This element of surprise played a critical role in the ensuing battle, highlighting Joshua's ability to combine faith with military strategy. As the battle unfolded, God's power became evident. He threw the enemy forces into confusion, enabling the Israelites to gain the upper hand. Moreover, God caused a hailstorm to rain down upon the retreating forces, killing more of the enemy than the Israelites did with their swords. This extraordinary event showcased that the victory was not solely a result of military might, but was orchestrated by divine intervention. The hailstorm was a tangible sign of God's involvement, a phenomenon that not only demoralized the enemy, but also reaffirmed God's promise to fight for Israel. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of this campaign was Joshua's prayer for the sun and moon to stand still, allowing the Israelites to complete their victory. Sun, stand still at Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Aijalon. Joshua 10:12. God answered Joshua's prayer, causing an unprecedented celestial event. The extended daylight provided Israel with the time needed to defeat their enemies completely. This miracle not only emphasized God's sovereignty, but also reinforced Joshua's unique relationship with him. The event was so significant that it was recorded in the book of Jashar, further immortalizing this miraculous victory. The southern campaign resulted in the capture of key cities and the complete destruction of the coalition forces. Each city, Hebron, Lachish, and Eglon, fell in turn, with their kings executed to prevent future rebellion. Joshua's methodical approach ensured that the Israelites gained control of strategic locations, paving the way for further conquests. These victories were a testament to the effectiveness of combining faith with strategy, demonstrating that divine guidance and human effort can work in harmony to achieve great results. The conquest of southern Canaan was followed by an even more formidable challenge in the north. Jabin, king of Hazor, formed an alliance of numerous northern kings, creating an army described as a great horde, in number like the sand that is on the seashore, with very many horses and chariots. Joshua 11:4. This coalition represented the largest and most sophisticated military force Israel had faced thus far, with advanced technology in the form of chariots and well-trained armies. Despite the overwhelming odds, Joshua remained resolute. God reassured him, saying, "Do not be afraid of them, for tomorrow at this time I will give over all of them, slain, to Israel." Joshua 11:6. With this promise, Joshua prepared his forces for battle. Joshua's strategy in the northern campaign was marked by decisiveness and precision. He led a surprise attack on the coalition forces at the waters of Merom, catching them unprepared. The Israelites' ground forces, though inferior in numbers and technology, managed to rout the enemy through their relentless assault and God's intervention. The choice to strike swiftly and directly disrupted the unity of the coalition and prevented them from utilizing their chariots effectively in the terrain near Merom. One of the notable aspects of this campaign was the destruction of the enemy's chariots and horses, as commanded by God. This act was significant because it symbolized Israel's reliance on God rather than on military technology or strength. By hamstringing the horses and burning the chariots, Joshua ensured that Israel's victories would be attributed to divine power rather than human ingenuity. This obedience to God's command also sent a clear message to future generations. Israel's strength lay in its covenant with God, not in its weapons. The campaign culminated in the capture and destruction of Hazor, the leading city of the Northern Coalition. Hazor's strategic and symbolic importance made its fall a decisive moment in Israel's conquest of Canaan. Joshua burned the city to the ground, ensuring that it could not be rebuilt as a center of resistance. This decisive victory marked the end of organized opposition in Canaan, solidifying Israel's dominance over the land. The southern and northern campaigns were not merely military conquests. They were deeply spiritual events that highlighted God's faithfulness and Israel's role as his chosen people. Each victory was a fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham that his descendants would inherit the land of Canaan. These campaigns underscored that the Israelites' success depended on their faith and obedience. The miraculous elements of these victories, the hailstorm, the extended daylight, and the overwhelming defeat of superior forces, emphasized that the battles were fought under God's direction. These events served as a reminder to Israel and to the surrounding nations that their victories were not achieved by human effort alone, but by the hand of God. The fear of Israel's God spread throughout the land, leading some cities to surrender rather than face destruction. Moreover, the destruction of enemy cities and the devotion of their spoils to God reinforced the principle of holiness. The Israelites were reminded that their conquest was not merely a territorial expansion, but a divine mission to establish a holy nation in accordance with God's covenant. By dedicating the spoils and avoiding the temptation to claim them for personal gain, the Israelites demonstrated their understanding of the sacred nature of their task. The spiritual significance of these campaigns also extended to the unity of Israel. Under Joshua's leadership, the 12 tribes worked together to achieve common goals. This unity was a reflection of their collective commitment to God's commands and their shared identity as his chosen people. The victories strengthened their faith and solidified their trust in Joshua as a leader appointed by God. This unity was essential for maintaining their covenantal relationship with God and for establishing a stable society in the Promised Land. With the major military campaigns completed, Joshua turned his attention to the allocation of the conquered lands among the 12 tribes of Israel. This process was a critical step in fulfilling God's promise and establishing Israel's presence in the land of Canaan. The division of the land was conducted with great care and fairness, reflecting Joshua's commitment to ensuring that each tribe received its allotted inheritance. The process was guided by the principles outlined in the Law of Moses, with specific territories assigned to each tribe based on their size and needs. The division was overseen by Eleazar the priest and representatives from each tribe, ensuring transparency and adherence to divine instructions. One of the key aspects of the land allocation was the establishment of cities of refuge. These cities provided a sanctuary for individuals who had accidentally caused the death of another person, allowing them to escape retribution until a fair trial could be conducted. The cities of refuge demonstrated God's commitment to justice and mercy, ensuring that even in the newly established nation, the principles of fairness and compassion were upheld. In addition to the cities of refuge, specific towns were allocated to the Levites, who were responsible for the spiritual leadership of the nation. The Levites did not receive a territorial inheritance like the other tribes, as their inheritance was the Lord and their service in the tabernacle. This arrangement emphasized the centrality of worship and spiritual leadership in the life of Israel. The allocation of the land also served as a reminder of God's faithfulness. Each tribe's inheritance was a tangible representation of God's promise fulfilled. Joshua's meticulous approach to this task ensured that the process was conducted with integrity and that the tribes understood the spiritual significance of their inheritance. The completion of the land division marked the transition from conquest to settlement. The Israelites now faced the challenge of establishing a society that reflected their covenant relationship with God. Joshua's leadership during this period was instrumental in laying the foundation for a nation built on faith, obedience, and justice. In these campaigns and their aftermath, Joshua demonstrated unparalleled leadership, combining military strategy with spiritual guidance. The victories in the south and north, the allocation of the land, and the establishment of cities of refuge and Levite towns collectively highlighted Joshua's role as a leader who faithfully executed God's plan. These events not only secured Israel's presence in the Promised Land, but also reinforced the centrality of faith and obedience in their national identity. As Joshua's life neared its conclusion, his focus shifted from leading military campaigns to ensuring the spiritual stability and faithfulness of the Israelite nation. Having successfully guided the Israelites through the conquest of Canaan, Joshua's final acts as leader were deeply rooted in his commitment to the covenant between God and his people. These acts demonstrated his enduring dedication to ensuring that Israel remained faithful to God after his death. One of Joshua's last significant acts was the renewal of the covenant at Shechem. This event was more than a ceremonial gathering. It was a profound moment of reflection and recommitment for the nation of Israel. Joshua assembled the tribes at Shechem, a location of immense historical and spiritual significance, as it was where God had first promised the land to Abraham. Shechem was also where Jacob had buried the foreign gods of his household and committed his family to the worship of the Lord, adding layers of historical weight to this gathering. Joshua's speech at Shechem began by recounting the history of God's faithfulness, from the calling of Abraham to the deliverance from Egypt and the conquest of Canaan. This historical review was designed to remind the Israelites of God's consistent presence and provision. Joshua emphasized that their victories were not achieved by their own strength, but by God's intervention. It was not by your sword or by your bow, Joshua 24:12. By reviewing these events, Joshua reinforced the central truth that God was the ultimate source of their success. After this reflection, Joshua presented the people with a choice. Choose this day whom you will serve. Joshua 24:15. This challenge underscored the importance of loyalty to God in the face of the temptations posed by the foreign gods of the surrounding nations. Joshua's own declaration, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord," became a defining statement of his leadership and legacy. This commitment, made publicly and unequivocally, set an example for all families within Israel to prioritize their allegiance to God. The covenant renewal at Shechem included the setting up of a large stone as a witness to the people's commitment. Joshua declared, "This stone shall be a witness against us, for it has heard all the words of the Lord that he spoke to us." Joshua 24:27. This tangible reminder served as a lasting testament to their covenant with God, ensuring that future generations would remember their commitment. The physical presence of the stone at Shechem would stand as a visible reminder of their pledge to follow the Lord, anchoring the spiritual decision in a physical symbol. Joshua's leadership extended beyond his military achievements. His ability to unite the 12 tribes of Israel under a shared vision and purpose was a hallmark of his tenure. Joshua's approach to leadership was characterized by humility, obedience to God, and a focus on the collective well-being of the nation. His life was a continuous example of servant leadership, demonstrating that true greatness comes through dedication to God and others. One of Joshua's most significant contributions was his unwavering commitment to God's word. Throughout his life, Joshua consistently sought God's guidance and adhered to the principles outlined in the Book of the Law. This dedication not only ensured the success of his leadership, but also set a standard for future leaders of Israel. His example demonstrated that true leadership involves serving others and remaining faithful to God's commands. His daily meditations on the law ensured that his decisions aligned with God's will, solidifying his reputation as a righteous leader. Joshua's legacy also included his ability to balance military and spiritual responsibilities. While he was a formidable military strategist, he never lost sight of the spiritual mission of the Israelites. His leadership ensured that the conquest of Canaan was not merely a territorial expansion, but a fulfillment of God's promises and a step toward establishing a holy nation. This focus on spiritual priorities helped solidify the Israelites' identity as a people chosen by God for a unique purpose. Moreover, Joshua's leadership fostered unity among the tribes. The allocation of land and the establishment of cities of refuge and Levitical towns were carried out with fairness and transparency, preventing disputes and ensuring that each tribe had a place in the Promised Land. This unity was essential for maintaining the nation's strength and cohesion in the years to come. By ensuring that every tribe, from the largest to the smallest, received its due inheritance, Joshua upheld the principle of equality and shared destiny among God's people. Before his death, Joshua delivered a final exhortation to the Israelites, emphasizing the importance of faithfulness to God. This farewell address, recorded in Joshua 23, was both a warning and an encouragement. Joshua reminded the people of God's faithfulness in fulfilling his promises and urged them to remain steadfast in their obedience. The tone of his address was both solemn and inspiring, urging the Israelites to reflect deeply on their relationship with God. Joshua's message was clear. The blessings of God were contingent upon their faithfulness. He warned the Israelites against turning away from God and following the gods of the surrounding nations, cautioning that such actions would lead to their downfall. "If you transgress the covenant of the Lord your God," he declared, "then the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you, and you shall perish quickly from off the good land." Joshua 23:16. This stern warning reflected the gravity of their covenant with God and the consequences of disobedience. This exhortation highlighted the conditional nature of the covenant. While God's promises were steadfast, the Israelites' ability to enjoy those blessings depended on their obedience. Joshua's warning served as a sobering reminder of the consequences of disobedience and the importance of remaining true to their covenant with God. His words were a direct challenge to the people, urging them to choose fidelity over compromise and faith over fear. Joshua also encouraged the Israelites to cling to the Lord your God, Joshua 23:8, and to love him with all their heart and soul. This call to devotion reflected the essence of the covenant relationship, which required not only outward obedience, but also an inward commitment to God. Joshua's words echoed the principles established in the law of Moses, reinforcing the centrality of love and loyalty to God in the life of the nation. His emphasis on love as the foundation of obedience demonstrated a profound understanding of the heart of God's covenant. Joshua's death marked the end of an era for Israel. Having led the nation with courage and faithfulness, Joshua passed away at the age of 110. He was buried in the land of his inheritance at Timnath-Serah in the hill country of Ephraim. His burial site became a symbol of his life's work, a leader who had brought his people into the promised land and ensured their settlement there. This burial, in the very land he had fought to secure, stood as a testament to his faith and perseverance. The aftermath of Joshua's death was a period of transition for Israel. The Bible records that the nation remained faithful to God throughout Joshua's lifetime and the lifetime of the elders who outlived him. This period of faithfulness was a testament to Joshua's leadership and the foundation he had laid for the nation. His influence extended beyond his death, as the elders he mentored continued to uphold the principles he had instilled. However, the later decline of Israel's faithfulness, as recorded in the book of Judges, highlighted the challenges of maintaining covenant loyalty without strong leadership. Joshua's death underscored the importance of raising up leaders who could guide the people in their relationship with God. His life served as a model for future leaders, emphasizing the need for humility, obedience, and a deep reliance on God. Joshua's legacy extended beyond his own lifetime. His leadership not only secured the physical inheritance of the promised land, but also established a spiritual foundation for the nation. The principles he upheld, faithfulness to God, unity among the tribes, and commitment to justice and mercy, remained central to Israel's identity as God's chosen people. His story continues to serve as a reminder of the enduring power of faith and the importance of leaders who prioritize God's will above all else. In reflecting on Joshua's life and leadership, it becomes clear that his success was rooted in his unwavering faith in God. From the miraculous victories in battle to the careful allocation of land, every aspect of Joshua's leadership was guided by his commitment to God's commands. His life serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of faith, obedience, and perseverance in fulfilling God's purposes. As a leader, Joshua exemplified the qualities of humility, courage, and vision. His ability to inspire and unite the Israelites ensured that they entered and settled the Promised Land as a cohesive and faithful nation. Joshua's legacy continues to inspire generations, reminding us that true leadership is characterized by a deep reliance on God and a commitment to serving others. What lessons stood out to you from Joshua's story? How do his experiences resonate with your own life challenges or leadership roles? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please share them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest episodes as we continue to explore more inspiring stories and lessons from the Bible. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video. Until then, may your faith guide you, your courage sustain you, and your actions inspire others. See you soon.